Hi, and welcome back to Supply Chain Secrets. This week, we've got another one of our experts, this time Mal Walker, talking about warehousing. Now, Mal actually, he's based here in Australia, but every year he goes across to the US to check out on the latest warehousing technologies and so on. And he shared some of that and some of his experience here in Australia and Southeast Asia recently at one of our seminars. So you're going to really enjoy this session. Mal's talking about automation, AI, and so on, and it's coming right up.
Thank you very much, Rob, and welcome everybody to 33 Sins. And it's interesting that it's called 33 Sins, and in that context I want to start out. I think it was John the Baptist that said, "Repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand." But you're all logisticians in the room, and I'm going to share something with you. You need to repent because the kingdom of online is at hand. And that is driving automation. Online is driving automation. That's the end of my lesson. No, but I will be talking about a few more things. So what will I be talking about? What's around and do you need it? So the agenda, I will be sharing a few international trends, what's happening in Australia, the top 2 challenges now for DC operators, the consequences of those, do you need automation? We're going to talk about next-gen technologies, and if I have time, I'll be sharing some samples of the latest in automation and robotics. But in the biblical context, I just want to remind you of something. We're all logisticians in the room, but the first known logistician actually was around about 3,000 years ago. A guy called Joseph. And Pharaoh, you know, the big pharaohs in Egypt with the giant pyramids and so forth, Pharaoh had these really strange sorts of dreams. So he heard about this guy, Joseph, who could interpret the dreams. And Joseph came and saw Pharaoh, and he interpreted the dreams, and amongst a whole lot of other stuff, he said that there will be 7 years of abundance and then 7 years of famine. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "What are we going to do about that?" And Joseph was very smart. He said, "Well, during the 7 years, we'll gather all the grain and we'll store it. And once we've got it all stored, then we'll use that in the 7 years of famine." And that's what he did. So during the 7 years of abundance, they were getting all of the grain, they were pulling it all together, and they had so much inventory that they couldn't keep track of it. That was 3,000 years ago. It's the same for many of your organisations today. Where's Kieran? He can help us solve that, I think, with inventory management. Too much inventory, too hard to control. It's something we all share. Anyway, so that leads me back to automation. What are we going to have a look at? First of all, just my background. So I have an engineering background, business and operations, logistics qualifications, and my passion is music. And I'm married. Sorry, ladies. 3 kids, 4 grandchildren. And this is my passion. This is what I do in my spare time. I'm still doing it. You can see there in the earlier years, that's me with the long blonde hair. I lost the hair when I started working in logistics. Okay, so where are we going from here? I'm going to share 5 international trends that will help you understand a little bit about the need for automation. The first one, there was a 2019 MHI annual industry report by Deloitte, and that indicated in the US, in the Northern Hemisphere, that sensors and automatic ID was now being adopted by 86% of firms. Does that apply to you? Think about that one. The Internet of Things. You can not only have the internet in your refrigerator now, but it happens in forklift trucks, lighting in your house, throughout warehouses. They can all send messages via the internet telling you that they need to be maintained or serviced. Wearable and mobile technology is 73% firms have now adopted that. Have you adopted it? Education and wisdom gap in the supply chain world, and I'll be talking about that in a few minutes. And finally, companies are transitioning to artificial intelligence. So that's happening on a national scale. What about Australia? Well, jobs are changing, and they reckon by about 2030, according to the Adzuna research, 1 in 3 jobs could be automated. And which jobs are going? It's the lower sort of skilled type jobs. Also, Australia is clearly lagging in the adoption of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence, if you're understanding what is it, it's really about machine intelligence and robots which mimics behaviour and cognitive functions of humans. The amazing thing is that these machines and these robots are actually learning to problem solve. So we're getting into a new generation of automation which we've never seen before. And so the really forward companies are starting to adopt those sorts of technologies. The other thing, distribution centres, and I want to help you out a little bit. I want you to help me out a little bit, okay? What is happening in warehouses? Okay, is manufacturing going up or down in Australia? Down. Okay, what's happening to inventory then? Up, beautiful, you're with me. What about lead time to acquire goods? Up, it's going up. What do the customers want? They want to go down. Customer service lead time is down, sometimes within hours, if you're in the pharmaceutical industry. I ordered some coffee the other day. I didn't really need it the next morning, but it turned up the next morning. So incredible speed of delivery. Labour availability, where's that going? It's actually going down. And the labour cost? Going up. Just touch on that in a moment. And, I've already said that. There's more. I'm going to now talk about 2 top challenges that are affecting warehousing operations in Australia. And it's relating to hiring qualified workers. There's a truck driver, someone working in the warehouse, and here's some young people playing with their digital devices. Well, guess what is attractive to the younger generation? It's not working in logistics, it's not working in warehouses. They don't want to do that. They want more of the cafe type, loungy type work, but they're all very savvy on internet technology. And what is happening, and this is particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, is there's lots of new smart young people coming in, and they're all aware of digital connectivity. Okay, and they're coming into working for distribution centres and so forth, but they don't really understand the logistics and materials handling and so forth. So what is happening is that the older people in those companies who have all of that wisdom are connecting with the younger people, and there's sort of a reverse mentoring process going on so that the digital smart kids can work with the older, wiser people and develop their supply chain knowledge around digital connectivity. So there's an amazing trend there. So the other thing is customer demand for lower delivered costs, and sort of Stephen touched on this in his benchmarking session. But guess what is happening? We have very fast delivery, and Amazon has been really, I don't know whether anyone works for Amazon here today, but very prolific at supplying small items in very quick time. So it's all in the face of e-commerce and the omni-channel boom. Omni-channel is really about different supply chain channels. It's about, in the old days, when I grew up, this is only 20 years ago, if you wanted to buy something, you'd go to a retail store, and a wholesaler would deliver product to a retail store. You would turn up to the shop front and you would buy whatever you wanted, and off you go. But the internet has now created the online world. So often companies that are suppliers have to supply to retail, a wholesale channel, and also to the online channel. Now, what that has done is it's made warehousing logistics incredibly complex. In some cases, we're pulling pallets of goods, and in some cases, we're opening up a carton in the box and pulling out one little item and supplying that separately to a customer base. So the complexity of business has increased. Consequently, firms are refraining from making investment decisions purely on labour, particularly as it's hard to get. They are focusing at total lowest delivery cost. It's the old cost and value type scenario. Their service, what Stephen spoke about again, picking in full on time, which is what happens inside the warehouse, and then delivery in full on time, which is what happens once the goods have left. I actually often break them up into two, because I want to know about the performance of the warehouse and I want to know about the performance of transport. The best use of footprint, which is basically the warehouse size, you want to make sure that you've optimised the space that you've got. That's where automation comes in. And smart ways to obviate the labour shortages. Scalability in the face of uncertainty. You know, lots of companies say, well, we can't predict the future, but we want to be able to downsize or upsize according to what is ever happening in the market. So that's companies are looking at scalability. Now the question is, do any of these apply to you? Yep, lots of people. Okay, of course they do. So automation may help. Okay, and that's where I guess, the rubber hits the road. That's why automation has become far more common these days. So we used to see automation in factories. Now we're seeing it in warehouses. So do you know, cost of robots, autonomous vehicles, AGVs, automated guided vehicles, and execution systems have all decreased. The cost has decreased. They're now more affordable. What about the reliability? Has it increased or decreased? It's increased, yes. So, the old AGVs you never quite knew whether they're going to work, but now they're working and they're working very well. Yeah, thank you. Fixed infrastructure in terms of conveyor systems, fixed multi-sortation systems and so forth. Which way is that heading? It's going down. Companies are not investing large amounts of capitals to do that, unless they're a very large company. And the take-up of scalable, autonomous, mobile, robotic systems is increasing. Thank you. And the use of cobots. Do you know what a cobot is? A few people do. A cobot is a collaborative robot. It's a robot that you can actually work right alongside, and the robot will be very polite. It'll slow down if you come near it. You can grab onto it and move it, and once you've moved away, it'll sort of resume its process for order picking or whatever. So cobots, the use of cobots is increasing, while human injury from repetitive tasks is, thank goodness for that. So you can see how automation is actually sort of permeating the warehousing and logistics landscape. Thanks. Now, in order to support automation, the Deloitte report, which I first mentioned, is talking about the next-gen supply chain technologies. And it's a pathway to digital adoption. And there's a model here, and I won't go through too much detail on this, but what it says is that companies have to sort of, if you really want to move to this artificial intelligence nirvana, you've got to start with digital connectivity at the lowest level. And then the next step is to move into automation. Okay? After that, you might look at advanced analytics, predictive analytics and so forth, and then you build your way to artificial intelligence. And just to give you an example, Amazon uses robots within its facilities. And it uses these robots that go to a case, like a storage unit, and it picks up the storage unit and brings it to a storage bay. if there's something in the way, like a fork truck or people or whatever, it will use its intelligence to reroute itself, to go around the warehouse and deliver it in another way. And that's an example of the artificial intelligence that we're talking about. These autonomous robots have a brain, and they're able to, if there's a constraint, they'll work around that and find another path. And that's the most amazing thing. Okay, so look, that really gives you a very quick overview of sort of what's happening in the supply chain and robotic world. I'm just going to touch for a little bit on just a couple of examples of some of the automation that is coming. So the common robotic order picking modules, goods to person. Has anyone heard of this sort of system? Yeah, quite a few. Okay, you'll hear more of this. It's where you physically bring the goods to the person so that the person can pick. So here, there's a picking station, and you can see the person is there. The machine brings the product to be picked from to the top two source stations there, and they pick to the bottom ones there. So the goods come to the top, they pick, put them in the bottom, and the tote moves on. That's goods to person. The next one is task to person. You bring the task to the person. And here you can see these little robots. You can have an order picker working in a zone, in a warehouse, and those machines actually come to the order picker and they tell the order picker which place to pick from, and then they put the products into those totes, the yellow and the green totes. As soon as you've finished the order, those robots take those totes to a packing station elsewhere in the warehouse. So that's task to person. The next one is goods to robot, which is similar to goods to person, except that you're using a robot instead to do the picking. And it's amazing what these robots can now do. They can visualize what needs to be picked. If they haven't got the right attachment on their arm, they'll change attachments and then they'll pick it. So they might have a suction device or a claw type device. The robot can do that in seconds, and they're able to pick and do all. So lots of companies, particularly in the online, omni-channel world, are using these types of robots in their picking process. And finally, there's person to robot. Okay, so there's a robot there, it's waiting for some picking, and the gentleman comes along and he goes to that robot and then starts picking and puts it into the robot. Similar to task to person, except that the robots are already stationed. The person goes through the warehouse, sees a vacant robot just sitting there, and that's a signal to say, oh, that needs some picking, and then he goes and does some picking. And the robot moves automatically to the next slot. So as soon as he's picked one or two items, puts it in the robot moves automatically to the next slot. Okay, so I've got lots more to show. I'm happy to share that at my round table. I haven't even started talking about triadic warehouses, which is really interesting. But if you want to hear some more about that, please come to my session. What I've just told you in very quick fashion is that the online world has really made a difference to warehousing logistics, and that's driving automation forward. And you can see that the labour savings and the labour scarcity is further driving that, and that if companies are not embarking on that next-gen digital supply chain to artificial intelligence, I would be worried. Thank you very much for your time.
So thank you for joining us again this week. We really appreciate you giving up your time. We also appreciate getting your comments and feedback. So do please comment below. Ask any questions you like. If there's topics that you'd like in the future, let us know, because that's how we can understand what you'd like to watch. And we actually start making our videos that way. So you know how it works. Our videos come out generally on a Wednesday. If you want to be notified about those, do hit the subscribe button. If you hit that bell, you'll get an automatic notification. And if you've enjoyed this channel, do share the channel, invite your friends. The more the merrier, the more questions we get, the more motivation we get to make more videos on supply chain and logistics. So thanks for dropping in, and we'll see you next week.